Before it became a quiet island getaway, this place had another purpose. In November 1874, more than 1,000 passengers from the cholera-stricken SS Milton were brought ashore. They did not arrive as visitors. They arrived as risks. And for over a century, St. John's Island became the place where Singapore separated the healthy from the doomed. The island's history is hidden inside its names. Before the British, it appeared on old maps as Pulau Sequijan, believed to come from the Malay Pulau Sekiang, barking deer island. Later, the name shifted, softened, and was anglicized into St. John's. But names do not disappear cleanly. They leave echoes. In 1823, a flagstaff was installed on the island. That detail became part of its identity. Pulau Sekiang Bendera, Sekiang of the flag, a marker for ships, a signal point, a place seen from the water before anyone knew what waited inland. Its Chinese name, Kazangshan, is believed to preserve the sound of Sakiyang. Different languages, different rulers, different maps. But the island kept being renamed by people passing through, sailors, officials, immigrants, prisoners of illness. In 1873, cholera struck with terrifying force. The disease moved through ports faster than officials could understand it. Singapore needed distance. It needed isolation. It needed somewhere close enough to control, but far enough to forget. St. John's Island became that place. St. John's Island became that place. The quarantine station opened in November 1874. Almost immediately, the island received passengers from the SS Milton. Over 1,000 people were processed after exposure to cholera. Some had crossed oceans hoping to begin new lives. Instead, the first land they touched was an island of suspicion. The island did not treat every passenger equally. First and second-class passengers often received brief checks. Steerage passengers faced something different: stricter inspections, longer detention, disinfection, waiting, uncertainty. Disease was the official reason. Class decided the experience. Disinfection was meant to protect the colony. But for many detainees, it was humiliating. Their clothing was handled. Their belongings were separated. Their bodies became evidence. For people already exhausted by sea travel, the island could feel less like medical care and more like punishment. Among those detained, one phrase carried despair: Bukit Orang Salah, the hill of wrong people. It suggested shame, mistake, a place for those judged unclean before they could explain themselves. Some waited days, some waited weeks, some never left. By the 1920s and 1930s, St. John's had become one of the world's major quarantine centers. Its capacity reached around 6,000 beds. It was compared in scale to Ellis Island in New York. But this was not a symbol of welcome. This was a threshold of fear. The island processed thousands upon thousands of people. Immigrants from China, workers from India, Muslim pilgrims returning from the Hajj in Mecca. They came with languages, prayers, family names, and hopes. The island reduced them to a question: were they safe to enter? At night, the island changed. The sea cut it off from the city lights. Barracks became long rooms of breathing, coughing, praying, waiting. Names were checked, temperatures taken, beds marked. In places like this, silence was never empty. It was listening. Not everyone survived quarantine. For those who died, the question became even more sensitive. Where should they be buried? At first, Kusu Island was considered, but Chinese community leaders objected. The burial ground was moved instead to nearby Lazarus Island. Lazarus Island carries a name that feels almost too symbolic, a name tied to return, to rising again. But here, the dead did not return. They were placed away from the living, away from the port, away from families who may never have known exactly where they lay. The most frightening thing about old quarantine islands is not always the disease. It is the forgetting. A person could cross an ocean, fall ill, die in detention, and be buried under a name nobody nearby could pronounce. Over time, records fade. Families move on. The island keeps what history cannot carry. As sea travel declined, the need for the quarantine station faded. In 1976, after more than a century, the station closed. The island's official role ended. But places built for fear rarely become ordinary overnight. Walls remember routine. Beds remember weight. Paths remember footsteps. Today, many people know St. John's as a peaceful island, a place for day trips, beaches, and quiet walks. But beneath that calm is another geography, one made of inspection rooms, detention wards, burial transfers, and names changed so many times they almost became disguises. Some visitors say the old buildings feel different from the beaches, cooler, heavier, as if the air inside has not fully changed since the last roll call. One account describes footsteps in an empty corridor, followed by the sound of a metal bed frame shifting in the dark. No figure, no voice, just the sound of someone settling in. Maybe the island was never haunted in the way people expect. Maybe there is no single ghost, no face at the window, no hand reaching from the trees. Maybe the haunting is historical. A century of fear, illness, isolation, class division, and unnamed burials compressed into one quiet island. The quarantine station closed in 1976, but the island kept its names: Sekiang, St. John's, Pulau Sekiang Bendera, Kijang Shan. And somewhere nearby, Lazarus still holds the people who never made it home.